fetch. I put my new man on a leash. Traded him out, he was just a lease. I ride around town till I leave. I gave that boy rounds, but I'm back to the street like la da dee da dee da. Five-star with a price tag. Gotta find me somebody that can match that. That's one got on my last nerve. Made me go change my passwords. I hit the curve with password. You know I get the last word. Pull up in my hood, best dress. Next thing upgrade, who's next? Rich boy, got him on deck. Good boy, time fetch. I put my new man on a leash. Traded him out, he was just a lease. I ride around town till I leave. I gave that boy rounds, but I'm back to the street like la da dee da.
I'm Betsy Herndon from Commonwealth Credit Union, and we are delighted to once again be the sponsor for University of Louisville's 19th Annual International Fashion Show. Tonight, we have 6 different regions, such as Asia, the Middle East, Europe, North America, Latin America, and Africa, represented in the beautiful student tapestry of the University of Louisville. Academic home to nearly 1,000 international students and scholars, U of L is beaming tonight as we celebrate Revolution, It's Not Over. Commonwealth Credit Union is very honored to stand with you in that celebration, and we are incredibly proud of the students and faculty who are participating in making tonight's event happen. Many of you know who we are, but for those that don't, Commonwealth Credit Union is a cooperative, not-for-profit financial institution that has partnered with U of L to help better lives within this wonderful, diverse campus community. If you've not already joined CCU, we'd love to have you come sit down with us and let us see what we can do for you. You'll find us in the Floyd Street parking garage in the courtyard, and of course, many other locations around the city of Louisville. Like I said, we're all about bettering lives. And that is why we're here right now, bettering all of our lives and celebrating and embracing a rich cultural diversity, gaining global awareness, and expanding our worldview. So, without further ado, Revolution, It's Not Over. Stop.
Welcome to the 19th Annual International Fashion Show presented by the Diversity Committee of the Student Activities Board at the University of Louisville. I'm Angie Fenton, host of WHS 11's Great Day Live. Now tonight, you'll see a stunning display of fashion from local vendors and see the cultural impact these fashions have around the world. Tonight, you'll see dancing and modeling and hear singing and spoken word from all across the world: Asia, Middle East, Europe, Latin America, Africa, and North America too. Now, to introduce tonight's MC, Gabrielle Mabra. Gabrielle is a U of L senior studying communications with a minor in marketing. She is a J. Blaine Hudson Scholar and the president of the National Association of Black Journalists. Gabrielle is pursuing a career in broadcast journalism and currently creates content for her original podcast, Brown Girl Gabby. Now, without further ado, the 19th Annual International Fashion Show, Revolution, It's Not Over.
Hmm. 2020 was full of heartbreak as we tried to wrap our minds around a new reality, which is COVID-19. While the pandemic has forced new changes into our lives, we've seen young leaders stepping up across the world to enforce a new type of truth. Revolutions have brought an end to corrupt regimens, introduced democracies to nations, changed societies, and inspired nations forever. Tonight, we not only explore the massive social movements that have happened in America, but throughout the world, such as Europe, Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa. When a group of people come together with a shared idea, they can create lasting effects by encouraging a change or resisting one, both of which will shape the future. Revolutions are about not accepting the status quo and not accepting generational oppression and injustices. To challenge the status quo is to be brave, courageous, and fearless in one single act. It is essential that in our generation that we continue to challenge and present new ways to identify and execute ideas that are progressive and impactful for everyone in society, especially as we see our country looking to the edge of division through politics. We can't accept the bare minimum in an era where radical changes are essential to our growth as a society. In a time of social injustice, climate change, and a pandemic, it is essential that equity is the purpose behind our actions and is actively worked towards. Our generation has been more active than ever in pushing this country forward. We've seen elections make historical difference throughout different states and old laws becoming new, all because we used our voice. It is easy to get overwhelmed by the ideas that society has created about our generation, that we're not old enough or wise enough to make a real difference. But the change of tomorrow is in the hands of the youth of today. What we will see in our future is what we decide is important right now. The theme this year is to highlight the wrongful deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Revolution is about being fearless and brave enough as young people to step up and demand change. Revolutions can seem frightening, anxiety-ridden, and even feel hopeless. But we have seen an uprising regardless throughout our city. This year, several students at the University of Louisville were a part of seeking that change. We see protests being supported across the country and voices ringing out across the world. As we fight division, it is essential that we continue to create moments of community and understanding. The International Fashion Show is about seeing our differences, understanding our differences, and still having love for one another. It is not enough to be colorblind to the things that separate us, but instead have an appreciation for those things. Today is an opportunity to highlight the diversity at the University of Louisville. It's something we believe should be celebrated and championed, and we are proud to surround ourselves by students who are so passionate about fighting change. It is brave for everyone of different cultures to continue to create representation, to be seen and heard in a society that may not always agree. We must know more about our fellow students around us to see their talents, their identities, and their backgrounds, to see them completely. Today, we lift up our campus and the diversity within to create a stronger community and a stronger family. So here's to the crazy ones, the rebels, the misfits, and the troublemakers, the round pegs in a square hole. They are the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but one thing you cannot do is ignore them, because they push the human race forward. Some may call them crazy, but we see geniuses, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world typically are the ones that do. Thank you for joining us for the 19th Annual International Fashion Show titled Revolution, It's Not Over. Our night will start with a performance that is no stranger to the International Fashion Show. Bhangra is an energetic Indian dance originating from the northern state of Punjab. For years, farmers have been celebrating the harvest season through the rhythmic beat of the doil accompanying their dances. Tonight, we are bringing you that same vibrant energy and the spirit of India with Louisville's own Cardinal Bhangra.
I'm a proud boy.
ਤੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਆ I'm a proud
ਉਹ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਨਾਲ ਫਿਰੇ ਨੀ ਤੂੰ ਡੇਟ ਪਾਲਦੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਆ ਤਰੀਕ ਮੇਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੋਟ ਤੇ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਕਦੋਂ ਗਾੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਣੀਆਂ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਕਦੋਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਣਾ ਮੌਤ ਨੇ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਕਦੋਂ ਗਾੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਣੀਆਂ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਕਦੋਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਣਾ ਮੌਤ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਆ ਮੇਰੇ ਦਿਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੀ ਤੇ ਹੋਣਾ ਜਾਣੀ
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਡਰ ਲੱਗਦਾ
treat us like these strangers.
Break it down. I know that truth. Tell me what you wanna go to club. You know you're not, go out of my house, call a taxi. Let me get that intro. We all no longer on the self-destruction. You were so in love, you weren't gonna tell me nothing. Let me get this pill, 'cause I had no right. Shh.
It's your boy Lil Jon, right? They trying to take this thing to another level. Let's go. Let's go. Let me see you get your hands up. Let me see you get your hands up. Let me see you put your drinks up.
Yo, fella, you a fool for that one, man.
Excuse me. Tonight, we'll be taking a trip across the world highlighting 6 different regions that Louisville's student body proudly represents. With each region, we'll take a look at some of its revolutions that have inspired, provoked, and demanded change. Our first stop is the Middle East, where movements have centered around issues such as government reform and fair election. From miles of stunning sand in Egypt to stunning skyscrapers in Dubai, the culture of the Middle East is deeply diverse. The fashion of the Middle East is a beautiful reflection of its long history. Enjoy, as our models will soon bring the region's life and character to each stitch of fabric.
And In response to the assassination of the Prime Minister of Lebanon, the Cedar Revolution was started. The goal was to have Syrian troops withdrawn from Lebanon and have a government with more independent leadership. This revolution is known for its avoidance of violence and peaceful protests. After Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was elected president, protests struck the country. The fear of a fraudulent election was prevalent when there were votes not counted. "Where is my vote?" was the slogan for over 3 million peaceful demonstrators in Tehran, and green became a symbol of unity and hope. The Tunisian Revolution was a 28-day campaign of civil resistance that included street demonstrations that led to the overthrow of President Ali, that was started in response to high unemployment, food inflation, corruption, and poor living conditions. It led to the democratization of the country and to free and democratic elections. The Egyptian Revolution began in January of 2011 and spread across Egypt. From the demonstrations and marches to nonviolent protests, civil disobedience, and the strikes, protesters urged for the overthrow of the Egyptian president Hosni Mubarak, uniting people from various socioeconomic and religious backgrounds. Protests focus on various legal and political issues such as police brutality, lack of political freedom, freedom of speech, and corruption. In 2011, Mubarak resigned as the president and turned power over to the Supreme Council of Armed Forces, with Egyptians later electing Mohamed Morsi to the presidency in 2012. The Arab Spring was a series of anti-government protests, uprisings, and armed rebellions that spread across much of the Arab world in the early 2010s. It started in response to the oppressive regimes and a low standard of living, starting with protests in Tunisia. Social media was a significant factor in communicating the ideas of the protests towards other parts of the world. While not all the protests led to change, several countries did.
Fear, stereotypes, and blatant bias directed toward selective groups of people is not an issue that has ever been left in the past. Our next performer, Rowan Saleh, is accompanied by a profoundly passionate and relevant spoken word discussing terrorism and Islamophobia. As she shares her stunning talent for writing and speaking with all of us, take some time to reflect on the gravity of her words and the experience that are familiar to our Muslim friends, families, and neighbors.
On June 17th, 2015, Dylan Roof walked into a midweek Bible study. He sat and prayed with the church members before pulling out his gun, killing most and allowing one to live. After the incident, he was found and arrested peacefully. When Dylan Roof killed 9 innocent black people, we did not question his God. He wore the flags of apartheid Africa. We did not question his allegiance. He committed the crime alone. We did not question his people. When Adam Liza shot a classroom full of first graders at Sandy Hook Elementary, we did not ask him to leave the country. And when Killen McVeigh killed 160 people in Oklahoma, we did not call this a crime against every American. And when the KKK killed thousands of innocent black people while behold to swaying their Christian morality, we did not ask them to remove their rope. We did not call all Christians bigots. Do you see it? Do you see how we did not condemn a whole class of white men based on the actions of some? Do you see it? Do you see how all the names are different? All the people are different. All the names are different. Therefore, we should not condemn a whole class of Muslims based on the terrorism of a group. If you want to persecute ISIS, go ahead. But to persecute ISIS is to persecute one who gave them power. And to persecute one who gave them power is to persecute the U.S. government. Do your research. Islam is not synonymous with terror. It is literally submission, it is devotion, it is peace, and jihad does not mean holy war, and terrorism is actually forbidden. And jihad does not mean holy war, it means struggle, it means survival, it means standing face to face with everything that's trying to put you down on the ground and choosing to be alive. Do your research. Stop listening to CNN. Stop trading humanity for hypocrisy. Stop listening to billionaire Republicans who's trying to scare you into murder and innocence. Instead of burning down a mosque, burn down the walls around the post muscles of your chest and realize we all have one. And lastly, as the customary greeting goes, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. Wa alaikum assalam. And upon you be peace. Do you see it?
Our second stop of the night is Europe. Europe is no stranger to the idea of revolution. Its cultural and social movements have overturned corrupt and unfavorable leaders. A land where you close your eyes and envision dreamy boulevards and golden building tops in Ukraine. European culture is rooted in architecture, art, literature, and more. The constant innovation and fresh trends of European fashion have influenced clothing industries globally. Our models will show off the spirit of modern European streetwear thanks to the local clothing stores such as Bataya and Blush Boutique, as well as traditional clothing that embody the heart of the region. I give you Europe.
In 2013, Ukraine's decision to not associate with the European Union and more closely associate with Russia resulted in a revolution. The demonstrators clashed with police and led to violent actions. Ultimately, it called for the resignation of the president. The protests were fueled by the perception of widespread government corruption and fueled the 2014 Ukrainian Revolution. The United Kingdom's vote to leave the European Union in the 2016 referendum led to a number of demonstrations in opposition to the decision, with hopes to reverse or impede it. The protests began in July of 2016 with the March for Europe and ended in October of 2019 with the Let Us Be Heard March, having an estimated turnout of 1 million people in total.
Singing, playing, and sharing music is something that goes hand in hand with cultural identity. Daniel Levitin famously said that whenever humans come together, there's usually music there. We hear certain instrumental rhythms and are immediately reminded by a place in the world. More importantly, language does not act as a barrier when it comes to connecting to music. Please now welcome to the stage Emmanuel Markin alongside his guitar for a captivating acoustic performance.
Threw away love letters. I gotta make me feel better. Finally got you by my bed, but I still can't get you out my head. Oh, I'm sending you one text at a time. I know you're by your phone, so girl, pick up your line. I ain't too proud to beg, so what's been said has been said. Oh, I need you to know you don't know what love is. I need you to know you don't know, and you don't know what love is. If you don't put up a fight, and you don't know what love is. If you don't stay up all night crying, you don't know what love is. If you're too good to call a million times, and you say you know what love is, but I swear you never seen it in your life. Oh, I swear you never seen it in your life.
A trip through the revolutions of the world would not be complete without stopping at Northern America. We've seen social and political movements of all shapes and sizes, whether it's the March for Our Lives, the George Floyd protests, the Women's March, or the fight for LGBTQ lives. The American people are no stranger to challenging authority and the status quo. Tonight, our North American models will feature clothing from local Louisville boutiques such as Bataya, Blush Boutique, Peacock Boutique, and Hey Tiger, presenting North America.
The Civil Rights Movement was a struggle for social justice that took place mainly from 1954 to 1968. Its intentions were for Black Americans to gain equal rights under the law in the United States. Protesters called to end institutionalized racial discrimination, disenfranchisement, and racial segregation within the United States. With the March on Washington was a massive protest march in 1963. Over 250,000 people gathered in front of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. to march for jobs and freedom. The event aimed to draw attention to continuing challenges and inequalities faced by African Americans a century after emancipation. The Stonewall Riots of 1969 were a series of demonstrations by members of the LGBT community which were sparked by a police raid that happened at the Stonewall Inn. The 1960s were not a welcoming time for LGBT Americans, so gay bars and clubs became places of refuge where they could express themselves openly. At that time, holding hands, kissing, or dancing with someone of the same sex was illegal, so police harassed many gay bars. The riots are widely considered to constitute one of the most important events leading to the gay liberation movement and the 20th century fight for LGBT rights in the United States. The Los Angeles riots of 1992 were a series of riots and protests that took place in response to the acquittal of 4 officers of LAPD who used excessive force in the arrest of Rodney King, which was videotaped and viewed by many. Over a 6-day period, thousands rioted following the verdict. Schools closed, buses stopped, businesses shut down, and many were killed and injured. However, the King verdict was the final straw for the frustration that had been building in South LA for years. In 2017, the March for Science was started to mobilize advocates around the world in support of evidence-based, science-informed public policies. It is an international series of rallies and marches held on Earth Day. The goals of the marches and rallies were to emphasize that science upholds the common good and to call for evidence-based policy in the public's best interest. The March for Our Lives student-led movement in support of gun control legislation was one of the biggest youth-led protests since the Vietnam War. It took place in Washington, D.C., with over 880 sibling events across the country. Protesters urged for universal background checks on gun sales, raising the federal age of gun ownership, closing the gun show loophole, and the restoration of the federal assault weapons ban. The George Floyd protests are an ongoing series of police brutality protests that began in Minneapolis in the United States. The civil unrest and protests were caused by the international response to the killing of George Floyd, an African-American man who was unjustly and brutally killed during an arrest. People all over the world were disgusted by the police officers' actions and demanded justice. Violent and peaceful protests were scattered throughout the country to demonstrate the injustice in the police system against people of color.
India is known for its diverse culture, foods, festivals, and people. The country has hundreds of dialects and languages spread across the subcontinent, having its own unique sound that is influenced by so many different styles. Our next performer will be singing a Bollywood medley that will be sure to transport you to the streets of India. Give it up for Samia and Rohan.
मुझको बता दे चाहूं मैं आना अपने तू दिल का बता दे चाहूं मैं आना
तू ही मुझको बता दे चाहूं मैं आना अपने तो दिल का बता दे चाहूं मैं आना
इतना बता दूं तुझको चाहत पे अपनी मुझको यूं तो नहीं इख्तियार फिर भी ये सोचा दिल ने अब जो लगा हूँ मिलने पूछूं तुझे एक बार ओ तू ही है मुझको बता दे चाहूं मैं आना अपने तो दिल का बता दे चाहूं मैं आना ऐसी कभी पहले हुई ना थी ख्वाहिशें ओ किसी से भी मिलने की न की थी कोशिशें उलझन मेरी सुलझा दे चाहूं मैं आना आँखों आँखों में जता दे चाहूं मैं आना ओ यही डूबे दिन मेरे
छोटे छोटे ख्वाब है ख्वाबों में गीत है गीतों में जिंदगी है चाहत है प्रीत है अभी में ना देखो ख्वाब वो जिनमें ना तू मिले लिखो ले होठ अब तक थी जो सले मुझको न जितना मुझ पे उतना इस दिल को तुझ पे होने लगा इतबार तन्हा लम्हों में अपने बुनती हो तेरी सपने तुझसे
मुझको बता दे, चाहूं मैं आना अपने तू दिल का बता दे, चाहूं मैं आना.
As the largest continent in the world, there is no questioning Asia's impeccable diversity. Our fourth stop of the night has more than 40 countries, each containing dozens of languages, religions, and cuisines, and more. Its revolution sought out the monarchy, demanded rights for farmers, and have enjoyed the tendency of student leaders. With lavish colors and drapings, our models will showcase traditional clothing found all over Asia, from a wonderful bustle of city streets of Pakistan to gorgeous lands of Vietnam.
Massacre in Beijing has not ended the battle between Chinese troops and pro-democracy demonstrators. Some people today were still on the streets, taunting the troops and cursing the government. This even though tanks are moving through the city with open gun turrets ready to fire on civilians.
The Tiananmen Square protests were demonstrations to advocate for democracy, free speech, and free press in China. Students boldly led and marched in protest from Beijing to Tiananmen Square. Thousands of demonstrators risked their lives and safety when armed troops fired at them, which killed thousands of people and wounded thousands more. The demand for the reform of the Thai monarchy led to demonstrations against the government of the current prime minister. This broke the ongoing taboo of publicly criticizing the monarchy. The first wave of protests were held on the campuses of academic institutions. The protesters demanded the dissolution of parliament, ending intimidation of the people, and the drafting of a new constitution. Thai citizens actively challenged the role of the cultural and political monarchy within Thailand, which revealed a revolutionary cultural change. The ongoing Indian farmers' protests are a response to a new series of laws by the Indian government that guaranteed the price of farmers' crops is no longer in place. Farmers throughout India are struggling with the weight of not wanting to deal with private buyers when the previous market allowed more financial security. They're concerned that the reforms will eventually lead to the end of wholesale markets and assured prices, leaving them with no backup option. Protests have been to repeal the laws and provide farmers with the financial security they need.
Majorette dancing is defined by high energy, spirited, and synchronized dance moves. With a fusion of dance styles like ballet and hip hop, our next performers incorporate the style of majorette dancing that originated at historical Black universities. Welcome now to the stage, my favorite, Louisville's very own, Dazzling Cardettes, with a routine that will leave you awestruck.
Being good, I'm a bad bitch. I'm sick of motherfuckers trying to tell me how to live. Wax hate under my pictures on the gram. You better hope I never run across your man. In the mall with him, I'ma have a ball with him. Somebody call Rihanna, I'ma buy some draws with him. He fucking with the stallion cause he into wild women. Put them legs on his head, now he love tall women. You'll never catch me calling these daddy. I ain't lying by my nut just to make a happy. Lifestyle when a can't fit a magnum. It never happened if the wasn't snapping. I'm a hot girl, I do hot spinach income on my outfit. I don't text quick, cause I ain't thirsty. These bitches mad, they wanna hurt me. I'm a hot girl, I do hot spinach income on my outfit. I don't text quick, cause I ain't thirsty. These bitches mad, they wanna hurt me.
We could end up with a good vibe, just us. No private sex. More time we go to moon and that's fine. That's fine. Why you won't keep on that moment? Why you can't stay in the moment? I can't lose my mind trying to read somebody else's. Let's keep it going.
The International Fashion Show is a love letter to the diversity that exists at the University of Louisville. 10 students from our show answered a question about what enables them to represent their culture during everyday life on campus, how they stay connected to their heritage, and what the word at the forefront of this event means to them. Let's take a look.
My cultural identity is African American.
My cultural identity is Vietnamese American.
I am a mixed Black
and Mexican woman.
White American. I identify as African American,
Palestinian, Jordanian, and American.
My cultural identity is Indian American. I am a Black American.
I am originally from Ghana. I moved to the United States when I was about 12 years old.
U of L allows me to be a proud African because they have different culture groups. As African Student Union, I'm proud to be a part of that group.
I am sometimes involved with BSU, which is the Black Student Union.
Walking in IFS has really helped me embrace both of my cultures at the same time, honestly.
As a U of L student, I am part of the Vietnamese Student Association, and I'm also part of SGA's Diversity and Inclusion Committee.
Ways I'm able to express myself and my cultural identity is through U of L's clubs, such as the Bunga Club, where I'm able to dance. I am a member of the Black Student Union here at U of L. I am a proud member of the Dazzling Cardette Majorette Dance Team.
Many organizations, such as the African Student Union, that I am a part of.
As a U of L student, I believe that I am able to walk on campus feeling unjudged and being proud of where I come from and being the person I am.
The way I stay connected to my culture is by hanging with my friends, eating good food, eating soul food,
Celebrating traditions, eating our food, and listening to our music.
Going over for Sunday dinners, enjoying my grandmother's sopa.
I continue to stay connected to my culture through being with my family, celebrating with my family, and also celebrating holidays as well. Learning different things through stories from my grandmother.
By eating different African cuisines.
Through food and through traditional attires and probably holidays.
I stay connected to my heritage through music, networking with other people who identify the same as I do.
I use my voice to speak out against racial issues within the United States.
I use my voice to speak up about mental health awareness and racial inequality.
Civil rights is something that's become increasingly important to me.
Islamophobia and racial issues.
I definitely use my voice for mental health awareness. Issues that are really relevant to today are the Black Lives Matter movement and mental health awareness. Equality for low-income communities and mental awareness especially. We are fighting for trans lives, we're fighting for Black lives.
I use my voice to speak about racial injustice and Islamophobia.
I would have to say that I really do speak out about health disparities in the city of Louisville.
So revolution to me means change, and it especially reminds me of the times we are now.
To me, a revolution means change all around the world.
To me, revolution is to act, definitely. Revolution to me means fighting for change.
The power to innovate for new beginnings.
Growth and power.
Standing up for what's right.
Revolution means to me fighting back for something that's important to you or important to society. Revolution to me is power, it's change, it goes further than equality, it's equity.
Our revolution is not over.
Our revolution is not over.
Our revolution is not over.
Change is now.
Change is now.
Change is now. Our revolution is now.
Our revolution is now.
Our revolution is now. Our revolution is now.
We're getting closer to the end of our trip around the world. Our fifth stop is Latin America. Latin American culture is known for its unwavering hospitality, and a visit to one of its many countries will bring you delicious food made from the mouth-watering spices, stunning dances such as the tango, groundbreaking visual art, and more. Revolutions across Latin America have focused on issues such as land reform and cost of living. Tonight, we will relish in the region's music and enjoy the brightly colored textiles associated with its clothing.
Yo Soy was a student-led movement in Mexico in protest against a Mexican presidential candidate and biased media coverage. The name Yo Soy 132, Spanish for I am 132, originated in an expression of solidarity with the original 131 protest initiators. The protest resulted in a national broadcast of a second presidential debate and a third debate among the three losing candidates in the Mexican presidential election.
landless workers' movement was a social movement for the land form to give impoverished workers land. Protests were centered around income distribution, racism, and sexism. The goal was to achieve a self-sustainable life for those in rural areas. The Chilean protests of 2019 and 2020 were massive demonstrations and riots that spanned across the country. Protests took place in response to the raise in Santiago's metro subway fare, increased cost of living, privatization, and inequality present in the country. The protests led to reforms in education, healthcare, and pension systems.
Latin American music is known for its rhythmic beats accompanied by beautiful melodies and harmonies that come from the musical styles of Mexico, Central America, and South America. Our next performer will be singing renditions of Selena's Amor Prohibido and Prince Royce's Stand By Me. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Christopher Morales.
Con unas ansias locas quiero verte hoy. Espero ese momento en que escuche tu voz. Y cuando vienes damos juntos los dos. ¿Qué importa qué dirán tu mamá y tu papá? Aquí solo importa es nuestro amor. Te quiero, amor prohibido, murmuran por las calles, porque somos de distintas sociedades. Amor prohibido nos dicen todo el mundo, el dinero no importa en ti y en mí y en el corazón. Oh, oh, baby. Aunque soy pobre, todo esto que te doy vale más que el dinero, porque si es amor. Y cuando vienes damos juntos los dos. ¿Qué importa qué dirán también la sociedad? Aquí solo importa es nuestro amor. Te quiero, amor prohibido, murmuran por las calles, porque somos de distintas sociedades. Amor prohibido nos dicen todo el mundo, el dinero no importa en ti y en mí y en el corazón. Oh, oh, baby, yeah. Oh, ooh. Forbidden love, it murmurs through the streets, just because we're from two different societies. Forbidden love, it tells each and every one of us that wealth does not matter to you or me or in our hearts. Oh, oh, baby.
la luna, es la luz que brilla ante mí. Miedo no tendré, no, I won't. Voy a preocuparme porque sé que tú estás junto a mí. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand, won't you stand junto a mí, junto a mí. Y aunque las montañas y el cielo caigan, no voy a preocuparme porque sé que tú estás junto a mí. No lloraré, no lloraré, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me, stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand, won't you stand junto a mí, junto a mí. Oh, won't you stand, come and stand junto a mí, junto a mí. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Won't you stand, come and stand junto a mí, junto a mí.
The music of Africa is undeniably infectious and unique. It is a style of music that is known for its drums, improv, and complex rhythms. For Africans, music serves to be the most dynamic method of expressing culture. To deliver another incredible performance, welcome back to the stage my friend Emmanuel Markin.
Damn, baby, I need Babeka. My God be my provider. He be my protector. So man, they go higher. Damn, baby, I need Babeka. My God be my provider. He be my protector. So man, they go higher. Oh yeah, me know be a probably. I don't do them anything. Until you say me and then if you wish me well, I wish you well. Oh, me know be a probably. I don't do them anything. Until you say me and then if you wish me well, I wish you well. Oh, eba, I should have fight for the paper. Love me now, love me later. Coming later, eba. I should have fight for the paper. Coming now, coming later. Yeah. Nana, me kebi mami, kebi mami, kebi mami, kebi mami, kebi mami, kebi maumba, kebi maumba. Ah, nana, me kebi mami, kebi mami, kebi mami, kebi mami, kebi mami, kebi maumba, kebi maumba. Ah, me know be a probably. I don't do them anything. Until you say me and then if you wish me well, I wish you well. Oh, me know be a probably. I don't do them anything. Until you say me and then if you wish me well, I wish you well. Oh, I dare you there we day. So are we there today? If you wish me well, I wish you well. Oh, I dare you there we day. So are we there today? Oh, shame on you. I pray my God go favor you. What we they do with deja vu? Omunye yanke feje doom. Oh, shame on you. I pray my God go favor you. What we they do with deja vu? Omunye yanke feje doom. Nane yami kebi mami kebi mami kebi mami kebi mami kebi mami kebi maumba kebi maumba. Ah, nane nyami kebi mami kebi mami kebi mami kebi mami kebi mami kebi maumba kebi maumba. Ah, mimi nyobi apobani. I don't do them anything until we say me and then if you wish me well, I wish you well. Oh, mimi nyobi apobani. I don't do them anything until we say me and then if you wish me well, I wish you well. Oh, 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 I wish you well.
We have now arrived at our final stop of the night, Africa. Bound by the Mediterranean Sea to the north, the Atlantic Ocean to the west, and the Indian Ocean to the southeast. Africa stands as the world's second largest continent. With 54 countries, the vast landscape features a wide variety of people, skin colors, and religions. Not to mention, each country has its own unique culture, making it one of the most diverse continents. It has bustling cities with some of the friendliest people you'll ever meet, an amazing diversity and beautiful landscapes. Before we showcase our models representing Africa, let's take a look at the various revolutions and movements that have made it to that region today.
This was originally known as the Boycott Movement, a British organization that was at the center of the international movement opposing the South African apartheid system and supporting South Africa's non-white population who were persecuted by the policies of apartheid. On 17 March 1992, two-thirds of South Africa's white voters approved a negotiated end of the minority regime and the system. Nelson Mandela was elected as the president of the new South Africa in the first free elections by the entire population. The protest was led by anti-apartheid activists from Cape Town a few days before the parliament elections. Protesters hijacked a police officer's water cannon with purple dye and sprayed the headquarters of the National Party. The imagery of the movement became a symbol of civil disobedience. This was a student-led protest against the increase in fees and to get more government funding for schools. A female SRC leader at a university led the protests. Overall, the demonstrations ended once the South African government said there would not be a tuition increase in 2016. The movement in Morocco was caused against poor socioeconomic conditions. This happened after a fish vendor had his products seized by authorities, then was brutally crushed to death in efforts to reclaim them. A multitude of independent journalists were arrested for covering the protest. The Sudanese Revolution was a shift of political power in Sudan that began in 2018 and continued till April of 2019, with the coup overthrowing President al-Bashir after 30 years of power. The demonstrations included strikes, riots, sit-ins, and online activism spurred by the youth of Sudan and strong women leaders. End SARS is a social movement and a series of mass protests against police brutality in Nigeria. Calling for the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, a unit of the Nigerian police force with a record of abuses. The protest began in 2017 as a Twitter campaign and was revitalized in October 2020 following more abuses. The protests are notable for its support by the youth of Nigeria and has since expanded to demand for good and accountable government.
Rayshard Brooks, Daniel Prude, David McAtee, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Zachary Anderson Jr., Virgil Thrope, Desmond Hayes, Vincent Harris, Jairus Harrison, and 153 more lives lost to police brutality just in 2020 alone. Every 28 hours, a Black person is murdered in this country. Throughout the years, Black people have learned you can't sleep in your own bed, you can't buy Skittles and Arizona tea at night, and you can't be a child and play at the park. You can't even drive with your girlfriend, because the response to simple routines is met with suspicion and violence. Police brutality against the African American community has a long history in our country. Black Lives Matter is a social movement that started in 2013 by 3 Black women in a response to the death of Trayvon Martin. Black Lives Matter is an ideological and political intervention in a world where Black lives are systematically and intentionally targeted for demise. It is an affirmation of Black people's humanity, our contributions to this society, and our resilience in the face of deadly oppression. The space that Black Lives Matter held and continues to hold creates a conversation around state-sanctioned violence Black people continue to experience. Last year shook up our community from every corner with the wrongful death of Breonna Taylor and David McAtee. Immediately, hundreds of people took to the streets looking for justice and an explanation. Peaceful protests was met with violence. Rubber bullets and tear gas clouded our community for months, leaving a permanent stain, while Breonna Taylor and David McAtee's name still ring out across this country. After 400 years of slavery, it is no longer time for slow, incremental changes or compromises, but what is needed is a radical shift in our social systems, economic systems, and criminal systems. One has to wonder, when will we receive righteous justice? When will the systematic failures be held accountable by our country? When will this country focus on a solution instead of a problem? The pain that was felt in a lot of hearts was also met with love. Black Lives Matter is also a safe space to collaborate and support and create resilience within the Black community. Change Today, Change Tomorrow is an organization in Louisville that creates access to resources, education, and community engagement. During the uprising in Louisville, we've seen that demonstrated when protesters came together to donate basic essentials and food to people living in the West End when their primary food banks were closed down during the protest. Throughout the movement, there has been a deep effort to contribute a solution that we can assist in every level. Over 100,000 Louisville residents in marginalized communities were served, 25,000 was raised in a single day, and dozens of clothes were given to people in need, while also demanding justice for these wrongful deaths. After a long day of protesting, we've seen the same volunteers risking their lives on the street facing violence from our own LMPD. It is essential that we continue to use our voices to demand justice for these crimes and also demand change in our community. That has impacted so many of our fellow peers. There has been dark and bright moments of this uprising, but I ask the audience today, if we fight, we might lose, but if we don't try at all, we've already lost. Will you join the fight?
And just exposes just how rancid and this racism is in this city. It's they keep wanting to call it a compassionate city. There's nothing compassionate about what just took place.
Soulful. It's the word that lingers behind after a truly magnificent vocal performance. For the last performance of the show, we have a singer whose voice carries the same soul and power of the artist she is covering. To end our night with a bang, please welcome to the stage Avery Hayes performing Whitney Houston, I Have Nothing.
Share my life, take me for what I am, 'cause I'll never change all my colors for you. Take my love, I'll never ask for too much, just all that you are and everything that you do. I don't really need to look very much further. I don't want to have to go where you don't follow. I won't hold it back again. This passion inside can't run from myself. There's nowhere to hide. Don't make me close one more door. I don't want to hurt anymore. Stay in my arms if you dare. Must I imagine you there? Don't walk away from me. I have nothing, nothing, nothing if I don't have you. You see through right to the heart of me. You break down my walls with the strength of your love. I never knew love like I've known it with you. Will the memory survive? Oh, one I can hold on to. I don't really need to look very much further. I don't wanna have to go where you don't follow. I won't hold it back again. This passion inside can't run from myself. There's nowhere to hide. Your love I remember forever. Oh, don't make me close one more door. I don't wanna hurt anymore. Stay in my arms if you dare, or must I imagine you there? Don't walk away from me. from me. Don't walk away from me. Don't walk away from me. I have nothing, nothing, nothing if I don't have you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to watch the 19th Annual International Fashion Show. My name is Gabrielle Mabra. It has been a pleasure to serve as your MZ today. If there's one thing we know that is true, it's that representation matters. We hope tonight's display of rich and vibrant cultures through fashion, music, dance more enticed you to be especially proud of who you are and where you come from. Now, please join me in welcoming to the stage the minds behind it all, the IFS executive team.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching this show. My name is Lila. I'm the chair of SAB's Diversity Committee. Planning this show has been so incredibly special to me, and watching it all unfold tonight has been the best feeling in the world. Thank you to every student who modeled or performed, everyone behind the scenes who worked so hard, and I could not have done any of this without the incredible ladies to my left who worked so hard and kept me going and never stopped believing in me. Thank you all so very much, and I'm gonna let Joy say a few words, please, to end the night.
On behalf of the Student Activities Board, again, we thank all of you all for joining in with us tonight. We hope that you learned something new about one of the regions that presented themselves, and we hope you all stay safe and have a great night.
That my best friend, she a real bad bitch, got her own money. She don't need no on the dance floor. She had 2-3 drinks, now she twerking. She throw it out and come back in. That's my best friend, she a real bad drive her own car. She don't need no lift in a strip club. No, my girl gon' tip, now she twerking. She throw it out and come back in. Beep, beep. Is that my bestie in a taxi? Fresh blowout, skin on town, she ready. She look good with a T at the end. I'm a hyper every time, now my mother friend. She been down since the jellies and the bobos. Now me stepping out the Jeep, got my nut lows. When we pull up to the scene, they be filled with jealousy. If a finicky, she gon' bring the energy. I hit a phone with a Z like, guess what? All the rich boys wanna on us. I just end up, you could look, don't touch. And I'm back bustin' bands every time we link up. That my best friend, she a real bad bitch, got her own money. She don't need no on the dance floor. She had 2-3 drinks, now she twerking. She throw it out and come back in. That's my best friend, she a real bad drive her own car. She don't need no lift in a strip club. No, my girl gon' tip, now she twerking. She throw it out and come back in. Now my best friend, if you need a freak, I ain't dumb but motherfucker, she my Tweedledee. If she ride for me, she don't need a key. If you style, but she waiting, you need a beat.
Only big talk come out my mouth. You know the sex too good, can't leave the house. I'm a sporty, I like the pout. My pop that if you pull it out. It go in and out, in